20th Century Boys is such a huge complex series that it can be hard to process everything when reading it the first time. Honestly, this is one of its greatest strengths. This was my first Urasawa work, and I was amazed by how well this man utilises the mystery element of this manga. Childhood flashbacks are present throughout, and this shift in era is essentially his way of saying to the reader, hey, try and remember all of this. Every single detail will come up later, and by clearly identifying what is important, Urasawa encourages the reader to try and come up with theories and to work out the answer to important questions as more pieces of the puzzle are at your disposal. Fukube's death halfway through the series is incredibly important and one I doubt many saw coming, and while it took me by surprise, it was possible to figure out Friend's identity quite early on. Some mystery series either have a nonsensical conclusion or a cliched one that undermines the experience and has the reader feeling like an idiot, but the mangaka of this work fills the mystery with complexities but does allow the more perceptive of us to unravel it a little bit early. Rereading the manga is almost essential, and knowing key plot points allows you to appreciate just how much detail and forethought went into his work. Most stories obviously aren't made up on the spot, but never have I read something that feels so complete, densely packed with foreshadowing, hidden details. There's so much here to be analysed that it feels like the perfect mystery series. Fukube's death really excels at showing how good a job Urasawa does, with the link between the Hattori mask and Fukube's surname being genius and really summing up his character. The reason that serial killers are so terrifying in theory is that they could be anyone, and Fukube is similar as he's hiding in plain sight, or rather instead of hiding, he's screaming that he's the one Kenji's group has been looking for. When he's introduced into the story during the class reunion, he immediately has Kenji's attention, and moments like these are why he became friend. Everything boils down to him wanting to be finally noticed, as at this moment he's the most important person in the room. This also explains why he frequently meets Kenji throughout the series before his demise, and it's a really natural way to gain some clues into his character and insight into his goal. Kenji not remembering him initially is a minor detail but sums him up as a character, being someone that no one remembered. At its core, his motivation comes down to wanting to be noticed after being rejected by his peers and unable to play with those he admired, and it's such an awful reason to be responsible for the deaths of billions. Going this far for something so minor really highlights his mental instability. His death is just the beginning of his character, as we explore him in more obvious detail, but stops him from being overshadowed by his successor, with the scene right after his reveal with Yoshitsune frantically trying to remember him in particular showing how meticulous and chilling a character he is. What I love about Kachimata is that as much as he's his own character with his new headgear and different goals and motivations, his backstory is as significant for Fubike as it is for him. Fukube's motivation is properly explored during the end when we see that he hated how alone he was, and the abuse he hurled towards his successor showed a relatable side you could almost sympathise with as well as a truly evil one as he changed Kachimata's life forever. In death he wasn't forgotten as his legacy lived on. As I said, the two friends managed to stand out as their own separate characters, and Kachimata and Kenji's relationship is fantastic, doing a great job of finishing off this story. Despite its complexities, in some ways this series can be shortened to a group of good guys fighting an evil organisation hell-bent on destroying the world. Typical good versus evil story. From Kachimata's perspective, it's the other way around however, due to Kenji stealing the badge as a kid, and instead of wanting admiration, he just wants to beat him. It's a simple way of thinking, and the manga does end in a very straightforward manner, with an apology. All this death, this devastation came from one incident that was overblown, and I find it really fitting that at the end of the day an apology is the only way everything can end, really embodying the idea that all of this is essentially a game for kids that's gone on for far too long. An aspect of the series that I quite liked is the theme of letting go, as a lot of characters are hung up by actions in their past, and hell, the friendship era making everything look like it did in the 60s is proof of this. Kenji releasing himself of his burden was the perfect way to end his character arc, and I can't imagine a way it could have been done better. This is a dense, wonderful series full of relatable, fantastically written characters, superb mystery elements, and so many twists and turns that you won't be able to stop reading. A story spanning decades perfectly complemented by the wonderful character designs with key features that stay consistent throughout. It is truly unforgettable, and I look forward to reading it many more times. 日が暮れてどこからかカレーの匂いがしてるどれだけ歩いたら